Like they are literal geniuses to do this plan. It's diabolical, but don't be fooled to think that your belief system is the correct one because they have every corner of the globe covered and they're puppeting it all.
Well,
It's
you can
all
see.
connected. I had a big wake up call last week or week before last, when I realized that the NWO, in my opinion, is coming through the extreme right through hologram Jesus, and that has
Absolutely.
all they made the left a decoy.
Hello. How many more people do you want, young athletes, do you want to see drop dead on the sports field? And yet, people who try and say, how about using some of these things that nature's given you that our bodies can recognize and work within a safer ways? We're the ones that are laughed at.
And
What a
punished.
brilliant evil genius to get people to be that brainwashed that they can't see how ludicrous that is. Right, a big welcome back, everyone, to me, Catherine Edwards. We've got quite a few new listeners. So for those of you that are new to the channel, my coffee chats with my bestie Brice from Esoteric Atlanta over in America are very different to the normal interviews. We alternate week on week, 1 week on Brice's channel, 1 week on mine, and we discuss things that are really important to all of us, friend to friend. We're including you in the conversation. We get great interaction in the comments because these are the discussions we need to be learning from each other at and thinking, what have I missed? What haven't I seen? And what solutions? And today, we're going to be really trying to connect some of the dots between digital ID, the absolutely disastrous state of all our health systems and the big pharma deals. We're going to be looking at the financial crash and digital currencies and CBDCs and tying that into a lot of the political violence that we're seeing across the globe and how all these things are part of the bigger picture. Because Brice, we cover a lot of diverse issues on our channel, and that's so important, isn't it, to understanding how they all link together and don't sit there in isolation.
It's controlled chaos.
Complete.
Controlled chaos. And I was telling you, we had such a great conversation last week about Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk and the one world religion. It's all coming together. And I was telling you, Catherine, I just got this. It's gonna be released on my channel on Monday. I'm going through all of it.
Read it out for people that can't see it on the
It's the
screen.
Toronto Protocols by Sergei Monast. Sergei Monast, R.I.P. Sergei. Like this dude did us all a solid. French
Yeah.
Canadian guy did us a solid because he really was the first one that was exposing this before it was acceptable. And he's the one that dropped, for as I say in here, for the English speaking world, if you know the term Project Bluebeam, you have Sergei Monast to thank for it. And it's all linked. Everything is linked together, guys. It's all linked together. Everything. Everything from Charlie Clerk to digital IDs to the food, the FDA for us here in America, the Food and
Yeah.
Drug Administration, to both the Republican Party, the Democrat Party. It's all controlled by the same, they call themselves the 666 because they control the six largest banks, the six largest. I'm not going to get all into it because I don't want to say certain words that, I don't, they control YouTube, and I was just telling you, Catherine, like it's astounding. And we've said it before. You said it last week when we were talking about hologram Jesus. Like this plan is genius. Like they are literal geniuses to do this plan. It's diabolical, but don't be fooled to think that your belief system is the correct one because they have every corner of the globe covered and they're puppeting it all.
Well,
It's
you can
all
see
connected.
this, and I'm calling this the final control grid because this, as you know, and as we've all talked about, and I think all our listeners know as well, that this has been planned for so long. This isn't quick. So it's so interesting to see. So over the last couple of weeks, there's a huge outcry about Keir Starmer, our supposed prime minister that we know is just a puppet, as they all are. announcing the digital IDs and saying how they're going to be compulsory in the UK by the end of his reign, which is 2029. But at the same time, Russia are rolling it out. And what people don't realise is this has already been rolled out in lots of places, and even America is very hard behind us. So they've done such a brilliant divide and conquer, Brice, to make it almost people gleeful in, oh, look at all those people up there, they're not standing up. And it's complete rubbish, because in all our countries, in all our different ways, we can talk about the sheeple, but this control grid, if anyone hasn't seen V for Vendetta, please go and watch it, is getting people from every single angle. So whatever your belief systems are on religion, on health, on family, on politics, on how to live your life, on absolutely everything, they have a way in for all of us. And we've spoken a lot about the Charlie Kirk assassination, or not, we will see. Actually, Ole Damagard, shout out to Ole Damagard, Light on Conspiracies. He's doing the second webinar looking into this, and he's got some amazing information on it. But whatever your belief is at the moment, what we know is we're being completely lied to. It's set up, there's so many high profile people involved in it, and the significance and the trauma of so many people seeing those images, whether they're real or not, of look at the significance of being shot in the throat, of in terms of shutting people's voices in. So at the same time as you've got that, you've got all of these digital ID rollouts coming in all our different countries. Timing is so critical in all this, isn't it, Brice?
Absolutely. And I want to, something they keep harping on here, which kind of goes into the digital ID. And of course, this was released in the 1990s, so it's not where we can update this now if we need to, but you get the gist. They talk a lot about how the middle class is one of the most important stabilizers for a free society.
Mm-hmm.
And that came about through this idea of capitalism. Now I know that not, I'm not here to argue and say that capitalism is the best governmental system in the world. They're all they're all humans aren't perfect. We're fallible. But
As I
compared
say,
to
my halo's around my ankles with my necklace. That's my favourite saying. Don't
I'm
mean
gonna have
it.
to use
Very
that.
boring on that front, but it makes me giggle anyway.
My halos are on my ankles, guys. Sorry. But when we look at capitalism, when we look at that, that was birthed, if we are to believe history. And I wrote papers about this back in school. So I'm kind of glad that my theory back in school kind of is backed in this from these secret meetings. Capitalism was kind of birthed with the Protestant Reformation. And
Hmm.
that's because they went from, if we look at the beast system, like this, the matrix, the system, the establishment, it is it's a system. There is the elites, it's a pecking order. You have to follow this structure. When we
Yep.
look at free enterprise, we're looking at entrepreneurship. We're looking at people being able to, I think you think about some of the most genius inventions, like the fact that someone turned a tennis ball green,
Mm.
a post-it note, right? Like post-it notes, like whoever invented this, genius. Like this is free enterprise, right? If you have an idea and it's sellable, you can make money. And that emerged the middle class. Now in Europe at this time, and this is important. I'm not trying to leave out other areas of the world, but they even talk about that. In order for this to succeed, like digital IDs to succeed, the Western world has to fall because the Eastern world
Yep.
is already kind of structured in a way that's easier. There's more complacency. Not saying that one's better than the other, but the Western world is where you have more of the wild card, right?
Mm.
Because it dates all the way back to Henry VII, the first Tudor dynasty in England in the late 1400s, when he had to basically start to highly tax the merchant class, which was the growing middle class. They weren't nobles, they weren't gentry, but they were merchants. That's what middle class. And we had the birth of the bourgeoisie in France, which is middle class. And so when we take away this idea of free enterprise, because if we're all chipped, we can't have free enterprise, right? We can't do that.
Absolutely. You really can't. Yeah, completely opposite. Yeah.
We lose our freedom. We lose
Yeah.
our freedom. We lose the nucleus of the family. So with the birth of the middle class came the nucleus of a family where you had, um, you know, I don't agree with nepotism when it comes to monarchy. I think people should earn their leadership role, be voted in. But when it comes to like a family business, that a
Mm.
father builds a business and passes it to his children, so they have their power within the nucleus of the family. that all is birthed from capitalism. Whether you like capitalism or not, that's where that comes from because of free enterprise. When you take that away, when you bring in this social structure like fascism or communism, which let's be honest, both extremes come to the same point of tyrannical authoritarianship, then you lose that ability to have a nucleus, to have that family center, to have a family business. Does that make sense?
Completely. And I want to sort of then lead on to that in terms of look how much now. I'm going to make a joke because we're going to come into this as own. But when we're talking about these societies and the elites, and there's been loads of this with Charlie Kirk and Trump and all and Keir Starmer and everyone. When you look, Brice and I are both quite expressive when we're talking, but you never see us going like this. You never see us going like that, So these hand signals are not just part of
Yeah.
normal expression. Just bear that in mind when you're looking to us. But if I sit there and go like this and get really scared, get worried. But in all seriousness, so when you look at the middle class, that's such an important thing because COVID was purely a test run for where we are now. It was to test out the digital ID grid. That's why we all had to stand on those stupid lines and in those grids. It
Yep.
was to test out the facial recognition systems. It was to test out who would comply and who wouldn't, and how censorship and how you can mislead people with celebrities telling you to get the jibby jab,
Hmm.
with social media algorithms that people are coming out and telling about now. Well, don't think it's not happening now because it is. So these perfect test grounds have laid the way for miraculously hit this year, all of our countries rolling it out. And in the UK, actually, there is the Child Welfare and Schools Bill coming out as well. Now, where everyone's while Keir Starmer announced that we're all going to have this digital ID, this child welfare and schools bill is going along in the background. And that's even more dangerous to a lot, or just as dangerous, because what they're then doing is getting all the school age children and getting them in the digital ID system
Yep.
and control grid. And of course, what greater way to control parents than to threaten access to their children? Did you know, Brice, in Germany, it's already illegal to homeschool your children?
That started in World War II, didn't it?
Talk about the end of freedom of parental choice. And so I would like to come on to just to start bringing up the health side of things. So we had Operation Warp Speed, and dear darling Donald has just signed a great new deal with Pfizer and looking at messenger RNA technology. So in a time when all of this is being done, we're still getting natural practitioners, natural technologies censored, banned, people jailed, people unalived for trying to say that things like there's a natural cure to cancer, which there are many. But no one can speak up. Come back to Charlie Gert. Where do you hit? You hit the throat chakra,
Yeah.
the control of the voice, the control of feeling that you've got a voice to speak up and say your bit. And the health side of things is critical to all these other CBDCs and the control grids, etc. Because if you don't control people's health to make them anxious and depressed, I mean, the level of anxiousness and depression in young people now is off the scale, other demographics as well, because we're all poisoned.
Yeah.
We're all controlled. People feel hopeless. If you try and confuse people on gender, no wonder they haven't got the energy to talk about more important things in their life.
And think about that. Like, think about past generations. Like, even when I was a little girl, everybody's mama had some homeopathic remedy for something.
Yes,
And we
I
learned that
did.
from
Yeah,
our parents, and that gets trickled down through the generations to learn how to like rub castor oil on your chest or do all these things that are simple homeopathic little. I was just watching something the other day about migraine headaches in Elizabethan times because they didn't
yeah,
have what they would do. And it was like, oh, that makes sense because they would just go out and get more oxygen because it's allowing more oxygen to come to the. So they had these holistic, and think about that too. You're talking about that they actually, it's so funny. You got to get this, Catherine, because they talk about all the school
mm,
systems, getting the children. Because children are impressionable and they're entitled and they don't have the wisdom. They talk
yeah,
about that too, putting kids into like high-powered positions really young where they don't have the wisdom yet. They're just full of ideology without having that wisdom to understand, wait a minute, this might not be what it. But with the schools too, as you were saying that, I was actually just thinking about when I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s. I graduated from high school, so I don't, whatever you call it in your country, last year you're 18 before you go
Yeah.
off to university for higher education. And I went to a private school. I didn't even know that university was optional until I was in it because in my family it wasn't. It was just expected. Both my grandmothers went back in the time when women didn't go. Both my grandmothers went to college. So education was really important to my parents. And the school that I went to, it was 100% you were going to university. We had college advisors, everything. Well, when I was a kid, it was starting to get even more and more stressful because they were demanding more of kids. You had to have SATs, ACTs, you had certain GPAs. You had to have, in my school, we did not take things like home ec or shop. I had to take calculus. And so they were comparing my GPA at a private school to a kid who went to a public school who got like, home ec. So there was a lot of pressure. On top of that, you had to have all these extracurricular activities, sports, volunteering. So kids were being worked to the bone. There was no time for a child to be at home. And I think about that. I look at like my nephew who's almost 13 and I see how young he is. I'm like, these are babies. These
Mm.
are babies. My niece who's in the sixth grade, she's already talking about university. My sister was stressing yesterday because she's already being pressured at 12 about university. She should be at home playing with her Barbie dolls. And
Well, I
so
will say so. Sorry, I know this is rude to interrupt, but I think what's a really important point there is parents need to recognize it and actually do something about it. So if you've got a 12-year-old that's being stressed about university, you need to seriously look at what school
yeah.
she's at and where
Well,
she's getting that
my
from.
sister sat down. I was at my sister's house today. She was talking about it. She was
Mm.
like, she showed they have a calendar in their kitchen, and my niece had gone and wrote when all her tests were, and she does really well in school. But the pressure is becoming insurmountable for children, and I think the good thing is there's kind of been a break, a crack, because my sister even sat down with my niece, and she was like. When your aunt and I were young, college was necessary. We were forced to it, but there's so many things you can do in life, vocational schools that don't involve going to a university.
Mm.
And so there is that break in the valve, but it's like with digital IDs. I mean, Catherine, you and I are not chipped. That's basically what we're talking about, being chipped. You
Yeah,
and I are not chipped. We're not chipped. They are already messing with our finances just for us questioning things
absolutely.
already. And we don't even have a chip.
And they've already taken down a lot of people like us, our sources of income, and made it very, very difficult to make ends meet. Plus, also, even people who are our type of people where we're talking to our community that are having the same sort of discussions and listening to this and are sort of not, when I say on the same wavelength, please don't think I think that you need to agree with everything we say, because we're not talking about that at all. We're talking about, by on the same wavelength, I mean people that are prepared to question things, think this isn't right, this is something really wrong. That example, like you said, about a 12-year-old being under that much pressure, it's absolutely ridiculous. And it could stop as easily as a parent saying, enough, I'm not playing into this game anymore. But the reason parents don't is because it's so hard for people to step outside that system. And I think asking different questions has been really, really hard. I mean, I have been in the natural health world now for 25 years. And I have been, long before I had a YouTube channel or a podcast, I have been so censored by the regulators just for talking about very, very well known natural remedies and support systems for the body, for humans and animals, because this information is censored. And we're still seeing so many people thinking that the white hats are going to come and save us, and it's so sad because what's happening is by the time those people realizing that they're not, and it's not all about gloom and doom, we'll come on some solutions in a minute, but when you realize that we're being trapped, all of us will fall for it for different things from all these different areas, no wonder. And it's also quite demoralizing, don't you think, Brice, where take the Charlie Kirk thing, and I'm just using that as an example because it's something everything watching or listening to this will have some, have had some exposure to. When you think, let's look at the different scenarios. If that really happened and they can so blatantly execute someone on the world stage, and anyone who hasn't seen Candace Owens' recording from last night, go and listen to it and you'll understand more about that. Or if the or the opposite end, if it's all a complete setup and he's hiding away somewhere, either way, can imagine the level of deception to pull off either of those.
Oh, absolutely. You know,
It's
it's so funny.
huge.
This past week I was feeling really depressed and down, and it was over the moon day, and I actually sat down and thought about it, and I was like, would would you, asking myself, would you be willing to lose your life
Mm,
if it came down to it? Would you be willing to go to the chopping block if you refuse to take a chip? And my answer, I never thought I would say this, is yes.
mm,
Because I would rather live free. I'd rather be dead than live. There's some things worse than death.
yeah.
There's something worse than death. And I mean, if it the fact that life means so little to the powers that be, and the fact that we are so, and they talk about this, guys. I can't wait to go through all this, and I can't wait for you to get this, Catherine, because there's so much in here that we've said just by
Oh,
observing.
just when we were talking offline, it was just amazing. It's like this is why we cover so many different things, and all our listeners do as well. Everyone's got this little bit of the jigsaw puzzle because you can't separate the attack on food sovereignty, the attack on mental health, the attack on sexuality, the attack on family values, the attack on finances, the fiat currency system, the fact that all our political people are not who they say they are and are not the ones really making the decision, the fact that our voting systems are allegedly rigged. You can say allegedly for all of these, but we're all wink wink, we know about this. All of this is into wow. And then, as you said, Brice, we all get to that stage where, I mean, I'm not speaking for everyone, but you just think, my God, is there any point to standing up about this? But there
I
so
mean,
is.
I would never be able to take a knee to the system. I could just never do it. And so I've literally thought about, like, would I, I have, it's so funny because I have problems with my, like, I can't stand wearing turtlenecks. I can't stand wearing chokers. Every time I get my hair cut, I'm constantly pulling. I've always had issues with my neck. I'm pretty sure I was executed many times.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's a past life thing. And so that scares me, the idea of like, but it's like, I would rather leave than actually be submitted to enslavement. Because to me, that's the ultimate like middle finger to the establishment, is that I know my worth. And I think our audience, people listening, we're all smart people. We're not stupid people. We're all hard workers, and we would be an asset if we were on their side. But the reason why we're a threat is because is for the same reason, right? Because we're a threat because we can think, we can see patterning here. And one thing they talk about, Catherine, we spoke about offline, which I'll bring up, is this idea of entitlement.
Oh,
That they have worked this idea of entitlement into our system, and you and I have spoken about this. We see this coming from the extreme left, this entitlement, to be able to change science, but we also see it very much so coming from the extreme right and from the
yeah.
truthers, to be entitled, to think that somebody is coming to save you. Our ancestors, as an American, we all hear stories about our ancestors. And as an American, because America, if the history they teach us is real, we're just going to go off the assumption that it is. As an American, I'm taught these stories. We're almost 250 years old. You're a young country. We can trace our ancestors. Most of us can trace our ancestors back to when they came here, why they came here. Our ancestors as Americans, they were not cowards, nor were they entitled. They fought for themselves. They risked their lives in order to try to live in peace. We were talking about, Catherine, the whiplash that was going on, even for
Mm,
Europeans or English people today. Like, that's the thing that white Americans have in common with Europeans. We have a common history. The whiplash that was going on within the monarchies just over religion and burning at the stake, and what our ancestors had to do to survive. No one came to save them. They had to either burn at the stake or be pragmatic and
yeah.
change, or go to a world they didn't know to start over again and face diseases and all sorts of challenges. I think about the American Revolution. My two ancestors, a 17-year-old guy and an direct ancestors, they literally picked up arms and walked into certain death because they would rather die than live under the King George III's rule. And so no one came to save them. They had to save themselves.
And
So,
feed themselves and clothe themselves and build their own houses
yes,
and be part of a community because that was the only way you were going to survive a
yeah.
lot of the time. And now we this level of entitlement of all of us. I mean, when we're talking about this, for those that are new, Bryce and I aren't pretending we're any different, by the way.
I know.
Not
It's a
at all. Not
self-reflection
at
for
all.
us too.
Says
Yeah,
me sitting here in my lovely, nice, warm office and everything, and But
right.
I think back to how my grandparents lived. They had the same wedding furniture that they got mainly as wedding presents. They had it all their lives. They looked after everything. They never wasted any food. They did a day's work and then came back and worked on the allotments. And they weren't thinking that someone else should do all that for them. They weren't thinking
No.
that they should be able to have strawberries in winter. You used every scrap, you learnt how to preserve, you were grateful for that. Now, there's nothing wrong with aspiration, but the level of waste in most of our lives, and I think it's so sad that I think when you look at the huge financial crash that will be coming, because what perfect way to put any dissenters into the digital control grid is to basically take away all means of supporting yourself, of feeding yourself, of providing water, of anything, and then you'll be dependent on the digital currency. What do they call it? When they hand you out the money,
Like the communistic,
yeah,
like,
where they're basically going to give everyone a basic income to sit around and sit on your headset and look through a virtual reality room so they can just loose your energy when they want to. And there's a big thing also about the Fabian Society coming out, and so many people are looking into the Fabian Society. And I mean, I'm laughing as I always do, in this sort of horror, nervous laughter, not because it's funny, just because it's so awful that you'd laugh or cry. But all these interviews of like the people in the Fabian Society, a lot of the leaders said that every human should go, every adult should go every 7 years for an interview to justify why they should be kept alive. And this is a reality of what we're moving into if we don't resist. And I'm personally so sick. Everyone watching this will have hardships, whether it's your health, your finances, your relationships, your work, your sense of purpose. There's all a lot we're struggling with. But sometimes, just like in health, people often make the most dramatic lifestyle changes when something disastrous hits them. Not that I want something, I'm not putting it out there at all, but we've got to be resilient now. We've got to see what's coming. We can't brush it under the table anymore and pretend someone's coming to save us, because once you have got that chip in you, you will not be able to get in your house. You will not be able to get in your car. You will not be able to phone your family. You will not be able to buy food. You will not be able to get any sort of health care, whether it's natural or otherwise. You won't be able to earn a living unless they say you do, and unless you comply with whatever they ask you to comply with.
it's you won't be able to hide either.
You won't be able to educate your children. You won't be able to have your children at home for you and make any decisions for them. And by children, I'm talking about two-legged and four-legged.
Yeah. You won't, I mean, the good news is we're not chipped, so I can drop my phone, throw my laptop, and we could run into Appalachia and not be found right now. But if you're chipped, they can find you.
Yeah,
And they talk about here too with the children, like we saw it in, Yahtzee. Sorry for those listening not on YT, but we have to say it that way. Yahtzee, Germany, that the youth were they were programmed to go and tell on authorities if they overheard their parents at
yeah.
home speaking negatively about the regime.
And look what they did in COVID. They got neighbours to snitch each other up. And also
Hmm.
on the tracking system, I was absolutely horrified, Bryce, was someone, unbeknown to me, that I've been in contact with, put my details on the track and trace system in COVID. And so then I suddenly got a notification to stay at home. Fuck that for a laugh, excuse my language.
Yeah,
But this is what people do. They don't respect your opinions. They're so brainwashed. And when I'm talking about brainwashed, I'm talking about the literal sense of the world, not as an insult. So often
right.
we use these words, they've been used so much as an insult, but we're all brainwashed in different areas, all of us,
Yeah.
and myself included. And Bryce and I are always laughing at ourselves as we have another, like, the cloud comes off and we're like, oh my God, oh my God, we didn't see that before. But this is why we have to keep talking with each other and sharing our little bits of knowledge. Because if we're just concentrated in one area, we're missing what's going on. So, UK's current example, we've had nearly over 3 million people sign the petition for no to digital currency, and the government came back and said, tough, we're doing it anyway. the child welfare and schooling bill. And people don't understand because until we started talking about all these so-called conspiracies, honestly, put in the comments who had the time or the inclination in whatever country you're in to sit there and keep a note of what bills were going through your governmental systems. I never did.
I mean, we have our government's been shut down right now, which guys, from other countries, like that happens a lot. Like that's not a sign that the White House, like that happens a lot here in the United
Yeah,
States. They basically throw a temper tantrum. They filibuster, they can't make a decision. But it was reading off some of the spending, and it's like that's our money, and you're spending it on like crazy stuff in like Romania. Like what like we're not even aware of that. We are already enslaved by that because and
exactly.
that is not what should be happening in a free society. A free society, people should be elected. It should be very transparent. And that sucks, Catherine. That's like, what's the difference in having somebody rip up a petition and say tough shit? What's the difference between having that and a tyrannical dictator? There's no
No,
like, there's no different. Like, and that's what the entitlement thing too, Catherine. It's like, I had a big wake up call last week or week before last when I realized that the NWO, in my opinion, is coming through the extreme right through hologram Jesus, and that has
absolutely.
all they made the left a decoy. I felt like an idiot. I was like, oh my God, it's so obvious. They made the left so silly that most people were pushed to the right. And they made revelations in the Bible play out to push people into this religion. And now I feel like an idiot that I didn't pick up on it because I've been hard on religion this whole time. Why didn't I see this beforehand? But now that I see it, I can choose to do things differently. And that's why we're focusing so much on my channel, this stuff to like
Mm.
spread the word. Like if Jesus comes to a sky near you, it's not Jesus. It's not your sky daddy.
Absolutely.
It is not, it is a hologram. It is Cesare Borgia hologram. Like that's all it is. And how
Please
his
watch our episode on Brice's channel. I'll link it below if you want more on that because you people watching this that didn't see last week, you might think, where are you all going for this? But the longer you stick with this, you'll understand there's a reason because they will hit people where they're most vulnerable. And when you're kept in a constant state of fear and stress, it's so easy to push people into religion and their savior. So a lot of people are realizing that Donald Trump is not staying on that white horse for much longer. He's coming crashing down. We haven't got even remotely anyone on a white horse in the UK. I've got a white horse at the bottom of my garden. I might get on it later and go Lady Godiva around the country. But the hologram Jesus is real. This has been on the board for so long. They've been alternating between getting the aliens up there and that because what's everyone going to do when
they're
they
gonna
see that?
obey. They're
I
gonna
just wanted to take a quick break in this episode to tell you about something that has been an absolute game changer in my life and that of my family and all my clients. So what if you could carry a protective high energy field everywhere you go? Turn your home and phone into a high consciousness sanctuary in minutes. Have you ever noticed how some places lift you up and others drain you? A walk in nature, a sacred site, time with animals or high vibe people. You feel clear, calm and alive. And then you step into a noisy, stressed place, phones, Wi-Fi, blue light, fear in the air and your energy tanks. So what if you could take that uplifting field with you? Well, you can, and it's called FLFE, Focus Life Forced Energy. Using advanced, non-invasive tech, FLFE creates a high consciousness field around your home, workplace and phone, or even a personal object. No extra routines, no extra things to do. Once it's on, it runs 24/7 in the background of life and you have complete control of it. People report things like deeper, more restful sleep, calmer emotions and less stress, sharper focus and productivity, and really importantly, support for harmonizing EMFs in your environment. Think of it like carrying the feeling of your favorite nature spot on demand while you commute, parent, work, or rest. And the best part is you can try absolutely free for 15 days. No credit card required. You can experience a shift for yourself. So please do check out the link below, turn it on for your home and your phone and feel the difference and decide for yourself. We take our energy everywhere and we absorb energy everywhere. So make sure yours is coherent, protective and high vibe with the FLFE. Try it free for 15 days, no card, and the link's in the description. Now back to the podcast.
They're going to obey. They're going to obey it.
Absolutely.
And we need to spread the word so that people can at least have discernment. And, thinking about, I mean, talk about fear, Catherine. As I was talking about the Christianity was not spread around the world because of the good news, because of the gospel. It was spread because of torture and violence. They talk about how the Europeans became the colonizers and all, white people bad because our ancestors, blah, all that bullshit. We've all been
Mm.
whatever. But the Europeans were the first to be colonized by the Vatican. They were coming in, they had the Europeans had this beautiful indigenous, we've talked about the Druids, the Celtic, these beautiful faiths that they were working with that was very similar, just different vocabulary words for all these other more holistic faiths. And then you've got this person coming in saying, believe this or burn at a stake. What are you going to do? So you've got this fear coming in that they keep pushing. Then you've got the Protestant Reformation. Then you've got all these people who are heretics. But to be a heretic, I'm a proud heretic. The
Mm.
word heretic means to not believe the official narrative. That's the definition of a heretic, to not believe the official narrative. That's me. So if they're trying to, if you're watching, I mean, Anne Askew, let's take Anne Askew, for example. She was brutally slaughtered by King Henry VIII. She was a Protestant female preacher. She was like 25. They broke all of her bones, tied her to a chair, and lit her on fire. This is what so people have been clinging to this faith because if our ancestors didn't, that's what would happen to them. So that fear, that catastrophobia gets stuck in our DNA and passed down. Then you've got
Absolutely.
the witch trials that happen all over. And I mean, Catherine, we probably were hanging beside each other in a past life from that.
Oh, completely. I think that's why I'm so obsessed with black cats as well. I love black cats. I love them. But in all seriousness, in a lot of parts of the world, they see them as, witchcraft and they do horrible things to them.
And so that has been passed down to us. And so now we're getting to this particular, I've been told, I've gotten emails saying because I promote yoga, I should be unalived. Like, what? Like, this is not, so it's terrifying to realize the genius of their plan and that they're going to put a freaking Jesus in a sky near you that's going to tell you to do things, tell you to submit. And that's not what's for your highest good.
And
That's not.
yeah. And look how we've been led to treat other species. Now, I am not talking about global warming. We know that's a hoax. I think most people watching this know that's a hoax. Carbon dioxide is the gas of life.